Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yasura Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yasura Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yasura Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yasura Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yasura Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parviraj Gajaja Shodhara Shishimar His Divine Grace Abhay Charana Ravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jaya Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivraj Gajaja Shodhara Shishimar His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Saranta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakti Ki Jai. Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories, Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Mastaya Vadeshmari Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Vishesha Shunyavadi Pashkatyadi Shatarini. Hare Krishna. Can you hear me okay? Should go up a little bit. unless you want to know what it's going to be like when I'm 80 years old giving class. Hare Krishna. The voice, right? So this morning we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, 30th chapter. This is text 41. Who's speaking here? Prachetas. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devyam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jamodiriyat Nasta Preshu Amadeshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashloka Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. Manu Swayambur Bhagavan Bhavascha Yene Tapo Jnana Vishuddha Sattva Antrishthapara Apayan Mahimna Stuvantyato Tvatma Samam Grinimaha Manu Swayambur Bhagavan Bhavascha Yene Tapo Jnana Vishuddha Sattva Drishtapara Apiyan Mahimna Stuvantyato Tvatma Samam Grinimaha Manu Swayambur Bhagavan Bhavascha Yene Tapo Jnana Vishuddha Sattva Adrishtapara Apiyan Mahimna Stuvantyato Tvatma Samam Grinimaha. Anyone else like to chant? Manu Swayambur Bhagavan Bhavascha Yene Tapo Jnana Vishuddha Sattva Drishtapara Apayan Mahimna Stuvantyato Tvatma Samam Grinimaha Manu Swayambur Bhagavan Bhavascha Yene Tapo Jnana Vishuddha Sattva Adrishtapara Apayan Mahimna Stuvantyato Tvatma Samam Grinimaha. Anyone else? Manu Swayambur Bhagavan Bhavascha Yene Tapo Jnana Vishuddha Sattva Abhiyan Mahimna Stuvantyato Tatma Samam Grinemaha. Synonyms: Manu, Swayambhuva Manu, Swayambhuhu, Lord Brahma, Bhagavan, the most powerful, Bhava, Lord Shiva, Cha, also, ye, who, anye, others, tapaha, by austerity, jnana, by knowledge, vishuddha, pure, sattvaha, whose existence, adrishtaparaha, who cannot see the end, api, although, yat, your, mahimna, of glories, stuvanti, they offer prayers, ato, therefore, twa, unto you, atmasamam, according to capacity, grini maha, we offered prayers. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Dear Lord, even great yogis and mystics who are very much advanced by virtue of austerities and knowledge, and who have completely situated themselves in pure existence, as well as great personalities like Manu, Lord Brahma, and Lord Shiva, cannot fully understand your glories and potencies. Nonetheless, they have offered their prayers according to their own capacities. In the same way, we, although much lower than these personalities, also offer our prayers according to our own capability. Purport. Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Manu, the father of mankind, great saintly persons, and also great sages who have elevated themselves to the transcendental platform through austerities and penance as well as devotional service, are imperfect in knowledge compared to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the case with anyone within this material world. No one can be equal to the Supreme Lord in anything, certainly not in knowledge. Consequently, anyone's prayer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is never complete. It is not possible to measure the complete glories of the Supreme Lord, who is unlimited. Even the Lord himself, in his incarnation as Ananta or Sesha, cannot describe his own glories. Although Ananta has many thousands of faces and has been glorifying the Lord for many, many years, he could not find the limit of the glories of the Lord. Thus, it is not possible to estimate the complete potencies and glories of the Supreme Lord. Nonetheless, everyone in devotional service can offer essential prayers to the Lord. Everyone is situated in a relative position, and no one is perfect in glorifying the Lord. Beginning with Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva down to ourselves, everyone is the servant of the Supreme Lord. We are all situated in relative positions according to our own karma. Yet, every one of us can offer prayers with heart and soul as far as we can appreciate the Lord's glories. That is our perfection. Even when one is in the darkest region of existence, he is allowed to offer prayers to the Lord according to his own capacity. The Lord therefore says in Bhagavad Gita 9, chapter 32nd verse, Mam hi parta vipasricha yepi su papayonea striyo vaishas tatasu daras tepi anti param gatim. O son of Prita, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas, as well as Sudras, can approach the supreme destination. If one seriously accepts the lotus feet of the Lord, he is purified by the grace of the Lord and by the grace of the Lord's servant. This is confirmed by Shukadev Goswami, Yene cha papa, yat upashraya shraya, shudhanti tasmai prabhavishnave namaha. 2nd Canto, 4th chapter, 18th verse. One who is brought under the lotus feet of the Lord by the endeavor of the Lord's servant, the spiritual master, is certainly immediately purified, however low-born he may be. He becomes eligible to return home back to Godhead. Om Agyanti Barandasya Gyananjana Silakaya Chaksulunmiritam Nena Taismai Sri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Nena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadandikam Bandeham Sri Guru Siyutapara Kamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaganath Raganatam Vidamtam Srivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shiva Shagambitam Cha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vandavanishwari Vrishabhanushuddha Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Banchika Patru Bajda Kripa Sindhu Bevajapati Dhanam Bhavani Bhyo Vaishnavi Bhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. So by the good wishes and blessings of the assembled devotees here and through that screen up there in the Zoom world, I may be able to say a few things. So the first thing that came to mind was the endeavor to measure others, the endeavor to measure the Supreme Personality of Godhead is actually materialistic and demoniac, right? The idea of, especially trying to measure the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it's impossible, so that endeavor is actually demoniac. It's not devotional. And in this material world, because of the modes of ignorance and passion and false ego, we're always trying to see how we measure up against others. That's natural. And therefore, it creates what is known as envy, matsarya. That's one of the basic principles of material existence, is envy. And that envy exists because we're trying to measure others. There's that one saying, just try to be yourself because everyone else is taken. You heard that one before? Just try to be yourself because everyone else is taken. So we are what we are, but trying to always compare ourselves to others, what's the point? And I mean that in a competitive way. We compare ourselves to others for learning and improving ourselves. That's something else. That's what I'm referring to. And that's actually not, one is not envious, one is humble and trying to learn from those who are in a better situation, whether it's learning or whatever it may be. And that's not what I'm referring to, because there are differences. Everyone is an individual, and you'll always find someone greater than you. You'll always find people on the equal level, and you always find people less than you. In a materialistic society or in materialistic consciousness, those who are greater than us we envy. In a spiritual society or pious society or a mode of goodness, those who are greater we look to for guidance. Those on equal level, there's some type of friendship. Of course, in the materialistic society, even your friends, you always wonder. And then, of course, those who are lower in a materialistic consciousness, we exploit them. We take advantage of them. But in the mode of goodness or a spiritual society, those who are lower, they are objects of our kindness, mercy, and a desire to help, to bring up. See the difference in consciousness. So this idea of measuring others, let alone measuring the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is demoniac. There's one instance I can think of off the top of my head in the Bhagavatam. It's Hiranyaksha. It's described when Hiranyaksha, big demon, Hiranyakasipu, his brother, that's Hiranyaksha, he picked a fight with Varahadev. He challenged him. And Lord, it's a whole story. But in that fight, he's trying to grab, because after they threw some weapons, and then he'd lost his weapons. So he's trying to grab in Lord Varahadev, squeeze him, and he couldn't get his arm. He couldn't do that. How can you do that? And the Purpura Prabhupada is making this point. The demoniac, whether you want to have a demon like that, a big demon having a fight, or mundane scientists, or philosophers, atheists, they're always trying to measure God. They're trying to measure God. Whereas the devotees, they have no consideration for measuring God. In fact, it's described the great devotees on the highest platform of devotional service, they're just happy to be with Krishna. They're not at all concerned with Krishna's glories. There's that pastime in Braj where the gopis were looking for Krishna, and Krishna turned himself into Narayan, the Supreme Personality of God, and they came by and they just kind of paid their respects and asked if you knew where Krishna was. They're not concerned about all the opulences and power of Bhagavan. They just want to be with Krishna. And that's the highest platform, because if you're approaching God and you're concerned about God's power, that means you're concerned about what God can do for you. Right? He has all this ability to bless me in this way and that way, in so many different ways. God can give me all kinds of wealth. He can cure my disease. He can give me this, give me that, give me this, give me that. So you're not really concerned with the person. You're concerned with what they can do for you, with all of their abilities, right? But higher than that is you could care less what the person can do for you. You just want to be with them. Amarish Prabhu was saying that when he became a devotee, when he started associating with devotees, he was first very, very cautious. He didn't even introduce himself, as the grandson or great-grandson of Henry Ford. He was just coming to the Detroit temple because he knew, and actually George Harrison said this also, because when you have so much money and position and notoriety, people become your friends, not necessarily because of who you are, but, all your money you have and what you can do for them. Immediately goes to that. So he kept it quiet for some time. And then when he finally revealed it, he realized the devotees didn't really make a difference. They were just happy that he was there. Bhakti Alfred, Bhakti Al. Like that. So he noted that was one of the first kind of people he ever met that just weren't, oh, this is who you are. Ching, 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 the money signs go. So measuring someone usually means you're trying to get something from them, or compete with them, and so on. So what's described here is the devotees, all kinds of devotees, no matter who they are, they can all glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that's what's important. Devotees aren't really concerned with positioning themselves. Now, there's another pastime which kind of it's on the transcendental platform, but it brings out this lesson. It was a lesson in Vrindavan. There was a big scholar, Digvijay, traveling around. And in those days, they would go around and have big, big arguments, sometimes going for days, philosophical discussions, going on for days. And when they would defeat another scholar, they would have him sign a piece of paper saying, I have been defeated by so-and-so. In this way, you'd collect all these different papers, and you can boast that I've defeated this scholar, that scholar, and so on. Now, this particular scholar, he also reappears in the pastimes of Narottam Das Thakur. But he came to Vrindavan, and at that time, Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, although they're living under trees, different, not just one tree, but different trees at different times, and all, but they actually had become famous all over India for their scholarship and their devotion. So the scholar thought, measuring, if I could get a few pieces of paper from them that I defeated the great Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, then just think how that would look. So he approached them, and because they were fully Krishna conscious, they weren't considering at all about measuring, oh, I'm a better scholar than you. No, I'm a better scholar than you. Well, let's have it out. Let's have it out. No. So, where's that piece of paper? And they just, I'll sign it.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, can you move the microphone near to your mouth?
Can someone turn it up a little bit?
Oh, I can hear you now.
Okay,
it's loud
okay?
and clear. Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. What demigod was that? Tapas Dev. Okay. So they weren't concerned at all. They were concerned with their Krishna consciousness. It was a mundane, for them, what's the point? So they just went on with their devotional service. Now, this same scholar approached Jiva Goswami, the cousin, famous scholar also. And when that person presented the papers, who told him, I've already got signed off by, Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, he became very, very upset. Now, his upset was actually to defend Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. That was the reason he was doing this. And he wouldn't accept that, so he actually challenged him. And they had a debate, and it went on for days. And it says that scholar practically lost his life heirs. He was so thoroughly defeated by Jiva Goswami. Now, and sent on his way, left Vrindavan. And but when Rupa Goswami found out about it, he was upset. He was upset that Jiva Goswami took the time to enter into this, philosophical dialogue and all that, just wasted things. This was not a person at all humble and concerned about what is the absolute truth, just trying to collect papers that I'm a big, big scholar. So he was upset with Jiva Goswami that he wasted the time, his precious time, arguing with this scholar. And he got very, very upset. And there's a quote here, I forget where it's taken from, it was an article I read. He said to Jiva Goswami, he said, "No one who rejoices in humiliating others or who asserts his own worth is fit to live in Vrindavan." So in other words, Trinada, Bisuni, Chena, devotees are very, very humble. And they're not really at all concerned with all of this mundane wrangling and this, that, and the other thing like that. And actually, Jiva Goswami left Vrindavan. He lived in Mathura. He just said, "I just go." And he just left and felt very, very bad about the whole thing. He says he was living in the hollow of a tree and performing all these austerities and felt so bad that he had upset his uncle. And then there was some verse about Jiva being, Jiva Doi, about being compassionate to the Jivas. Sanatana Goswami was Rupa Goswami. And he pointed out, so this is about being compassionate to Jivas. How about Jiva Goswami? So Rupa Goswami said, okay. He went and called him back. He said, "Please, come on back." But just an example here about not wasting one's time at all with this mundane measuring of others, and you get all caught up in it. It's just the nature of this material world, the dualities of this material world. There's the left, there's the right, there's this, there's that, there's this political, there's that, all these different things. They're all fighting with each other. And that's, so devotees are very concerned about keeping their distance instead of being swallowed up. Because what this is this demoniac tendency, because it means mode of passion and ignorance, to be all caught up in these things. Even Prahlad Maharaj, he brings that up when his father sent him to school. He said, "I'm not concerned about learning who's my enemy, who's my friend, who's my enemy, who's my ally, that's all this stuff you have to learn in politics." Because he was seeing samaksaveshu bhuteshu, right? Everyone is equal. Everyone's a devotee of Krishna. That's the devotee's vision, and therefore nirmatsaranam satam, the devotees are non-envious, because they're not measuring. They're seeing everyone as Krishna conscious, as devotees like that, and actually as an object of their service. That's very, very humble. So those are two pastimes. So as far as what is that? There's that quote. I don't know. I went to look it up. Have you heard this quote before? "Man is the measure of all things." And what is that called? Humanistic thinking. In other words, man is the measure of all things. In other words, what we think as human beings, that's the real reality. How proud is that? How proud is that? Man is the measure of all things. All this idea of God and this and that and bogus. It's what man can come up with through his philosophizing, his speculation, his science. That's the measure of reality. And if we can't accommodate it in our brains, it doesn't exist because we can't measure it. So man is the measure of all things. That's the what do you call it? Motto and theme of Kali Yuga, of the atheistic society. Man is the measure of all things. All this other stuff like that. You can't see it. You can't touch it. You can't prove it. Man is the measure of all things. So, when am I supposed to stop? 4 minutes? Go to the half hour? Oh, good. Okay. So the other point being here is that devotees, whoever they may be, they can be the most exalted devotees or the most neophyte devotees. Everyone is encouraged to glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead and offer prayers according to one's capacity. There is a verse, I don't know if it's in the first canto or the second canto, I think it's Shukadev Goswami, who's saying that one glorifies the Lord. Just like birds, different kinds of birds, they can fly in the sky at different altitudes. according to what kind of bird they are. In the same way, according to one's advancement in Krishna consciousness, one can glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it doesn't matter whether one is very, very high or very, very low. Everyone is encouraged to glorify the Supreme Lord. Why is that? It's because that glorification is for us. In the sense, it's to purify our hearts. Krishna doesn't need us to, he doesn't need our prayers to like, what's the word I'm trying to think of? What does the coach do to get the team going? Hype them up, encouragement. Krishna doesn't need encouragement to be God. Come on, you're doing a good job. You're doing a great job, Krishna. You play that flute very nicely, and you're really taking care of all your devotees, and you're doing a great job, Krishna. So Krishna doesn't need that, like that, because he's Purnam, he's complete, and a lot of other things. So who actually needs the prayer offering? That's us. We need to offer the prayers. So that's brought up here. And now the prayers are offered according to our level of advancement and also what we want from Krishna. What is that? Bhakti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakaleya Santa. There's three categories, you could say, of prayers. Bhakti means enjoyment in this material world. Now, most people, they're praying to or glorifying God for some kind of benediction in this material world. That's just, that's the demographics of people in this world. That's why most of the Vedic literature is all about karma kanda. Most of it is. Then you got a smaller section, jnana kanda, and a very small section about bhakti and pure devotional service. And that reflects the population. Most people are interested in enjoying this material world, so what are they going to pray for? Facilities in this material world. That's what they're going to pray for. And then you have the mukti. Mukti means liberation. There are some people who are actually fed up. If I can use it, frustrated, fed up. Sometimes they're called old souls. They've been around a long time, and if you stick around long enough, you get kicked enough, and you just say, there's got to be something more. I want liberation. I want freedom from this material world. So those who are offering prayers, which is interesting, impersonalist, there's no God, but somehow or other that's their prayer. And that's why they say, oh, you pray to Narayan or Krishna, and then after you become self-realized, you don't need them anymore. But they're praying for liberation. They're hoping for liberation. And then you have the devotees who are offering different levels of devotional prayers. And on the highest level, and that's why it's important to get the Association of Advanced Devotees in person or through their teachings, because then we know what the highest prayers are. In the Bhagavatam, because it's Amala Purana, it's completely pure. It's, Kaitava Dharma. Cheating religion has been kicked out. Cheating religion refers to these other two types of prayers, Bhakti and Mukti. We're cheating ourselves if we're thinking that God, just give me some enjoyment in the material world. God, liberate me from this material world. Krishna gives something much, much millions and billions of times, unlimitedly times greater. So we're cheating ourselves, right? Just like Prabhupada gives example, if a king says, I'll give you anything you want, and you ask him for a pinch of ashes, he could have given you half the kingdom. Is that very intelligent? Not very intelligent at all. So Krishna can give prema bhakti, and we'd rather have something of this material world. And that's why, Dhruva Maharaj was the one who said, I was looking for broken pieces of glass. He wanted a kingdom greater than Lord Brahma. He was worshiping the Lord for that. And when he actually saw and got the darshan and blessings of Narayan, of the Supreme Lord, he said, I was looking for broken pieces of glass, and now that I've got your blessings on, I have the most valuable gem. So he actually understood there's no value to broken glass like that. So that's what the devotees are interested in, and they're offering those kinds of prayers, and we need to learn how to adjust our consciousness and have full faith that Krishna will give us the most wonderful thing. And that's what we should be asking for. It's not easy to make that transition because unlimited lifetimes you've been asking for all that other stuff. And even the desire for liberation. Oh, I'm suffering in this material world. Krishna, get me out of all this suffering. That's not the highest level. The highest level is I just want some service. What is it? Na danam na janam na sundarim kabidam va jagadishya kame mama janmini janmisha bhavatad bhakti hoitaki toi. Bhavatad bhakti hoitaki toi. What I want is bhavatad bhakti hoitaki toi. Just unmotivated and pure devotional service. That's what I want. That's the aspiration. And if it's not the aspiration, it should be the aspiration for the aspiration. You know, we may not be aspiring for it, but we should aspire for it. And if we can, or aspire. How far back we are, as long as we're on that trajectory, we're okay. So I just wanted to end, because I thought this was very, very sweet, because we're talking about prayers and different levels of devotees. And Prahlad Maharaj, because we'll be reading next week about Lord Nrsingadev's appearance. And when Prahlad Maharaj, little boy, he's there, Lord Nrsingadev's there, the demigods like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, even Lakshmi herself, all gathered there, and none of their prayers are working to pacify Lord Nrsingadev. So Lord Brahma said, well, he came here for you. Why don't you please see if you can pacify him? So here's Prahlad, and he approaches Lord Nrsingadev, and it's described that Lord Nrsingadev was, he came and prostrated himself before Lord Nrsingadev, and Lord Nrsingadev became very ecstatic seeing Prahlad Maharaj in front of him, and he placed his lotus hand upon his head, because the Lord is always ready to create fearlessness in all his devotees, and just by that touch of Lord Nrsingadev's hand, Prahlad Maharaj was completely free from all contaminations, and he started to offering prayers. But there's one or two of these verses I thought was very, very pertinent. Today's verse also. Prahlad Maharaj said, he prayed. This is 798. 798. He's beginning to offer his prayers. Prahlad Maharaj prayed, how is it possible for me, who have been born in a family of asuras, to offer suitable prayers to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Even until now, all the demigods headed by Lord Brahma and all the saintly persons could not satisfy the Lord by streams of excellent words, although such persons are very qualified, being in the mode of goodness. Then what is to be said of me? I am not at all qualified. Prahlad Maharaj continued, one may possess wealth, an aristocratic family, beauty, austerity, education, sensory expertise, luster, influence, physical strength, diligence, intelligence, and mystic yoga power. But I think that even all these qualifications, by all these qualifications, one cannot satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, one can satisfy the Lord simply by devotional service. Gajendra did this, and thus the Lord was satisfied with him. So the point here that we're talking about any devotee, all devotees can offer prayers and should offer prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and whatever position we're in. And Krishna actually is in the heart. Krishna's going to help us to offer prayers to him, right? Smrita Jnanam Apohanam Cha. So based upon our devotion, Krishna reciprocates in that way. So the few takeaways from today's class, the first part was about measuring others out of enviousness, all the way up to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that also means being frustrated with Krishna. He's not on our time schedule. You know, Krishna, I asked for this. Krishna, I asked for that. How come this doesn't happen? I'm a devotee. I deserve. We're measuring Krishna. Come on, like, you know, I expected this, and I expected that, and I expected this. So that measuring, all the way up to measuring Krishna, and then also all devotees, whoever they may be. No one can glorify Krishna completely, and that's not the endeavor anyways. The endeavor is to glorify as much as possible from whatever level we're at for our own purification. So we can end here as far as what I am saying, and now we can leave it up over to others to save the class.
Yes, I want to save the class with my question. Can you hear me, Prabhu?
Yes.
Dharmasetu Prabhu, I have a question, but if a senior devotee wants to go first, I can wait.
Go ahead, they say.
Okay, so I'm calling from Portugal, if you want to know. Thank you. Prabhu, my question is related to the following quote from the translation, and I quote, Dear Lord, even great yogis and mystics who are very much advanced by virtue of austerity and knowledge, and who have completely situated themselves in pure existence, as well as great personalities like Manu, Lord Brahma, and Lord Shiva, cannot fully understand your glories and potencies. End quote. So, Prabhu, my question is, if I am not wrong, the ones who are saying this verse, chanting this verse, are the Prachetas, no?
Yes.
So in accordance with this quote made by the Prachetas, we see that the possibility for us to fully understand the glories and the potencies of the Lord exist. So my question is, how is it possible for an infinitesimal living entity, part and parcel of Lord Krishna, to know him in full?
So the question being, how is it possible for an infinitesimal spirit soul to completely know Krishna in full? The whole point of the verse, and also in the purport, Prabhupada points out, is not possible. Nor is it even a consideration for a pure soul to know Krishna in full. We just need to know Krishna enough to be fully attracted to him and fully absorbed in pure devotional service. Again, we don't have to understand all of Krishna's glories, because that's impossible. It's not necessary. I mean, you could even, I alluded to this, in Vrindavan, in the spiritual world, and pure devotees, they know that Krishna is just the most beautiful person. That's all they need to know. He's the most kind, beautiful, loving, dearmost friend. He's the perfect friend. He's the perfect son. He's the perfect master. He's the perfect lover. That's all they need to know. They don't have to measure anything else. And that's what happens when the soul becomes completely purified. There's no longer a consideration for measuring Krishna at all, because it's out of love. If you're in a loving relationship and you're always measuring the other person, that's not very lovey-dovey. That's not very pure at all. Because, you're trying to get something out of that other person. But when you're actually in love, and we can only love on the spiritual platform because of that. Because on the material platform, you're always calculating. He's always calculating about her. She's always calculating about him, and this and that. And it's never pure, because there's always that element of calculation. But when you're pure in Krishna consciousness, there's no calculation about measuring or what I can get. It's just, I'm just so happy to be able to render some service to Krishna, to engage in his pure devotional service. That's all I want. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, yes, Prabhu, it answered my question. It was an amazing answer, Dharmasetu Prabhu. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Vai com Deus.
Você também.
Hare Krishna.
When you're bringing up this point of Jiva Goswami arguing with this scholar, I was thinking about, you're talking about, not wasting time. And I was thinking about it could be a common experience, and I've experienced it. Anyways, many devotees, I think, when they go out on book distribution, they experience it. They have a table, or they're walking around, they're distributing books, and especially with the table, because you're like, you're just there.
Captive.
Yeah, you're captive. Someone could just come and So. Go? Yeah. So, but sometimes it's difficult to know exactly. Just because a person's challenging doesn't necessarily mean that the message won't go through. So, but then again, sometimes it's like, you hear devotees that spend, 15, 20, 30, 40 minutes, and the guy, he's just, I don't know, he's a fanatic of some other religion and wasting your time, or he's just an out and out atheist who's just, nothing's getting through to his brain or whatever. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, maybe there's no, because every situation's different. Maybe there's no exact way to tell, but I don't know, is there some type of indications or some type of ways we could try to figure out maybe quicker whether this person's a, professional time waster, or whether they're actually, we could get through to them? What do you think about that?
Well, I think we're very fortunate because out of the over than 3 billion human beings on this planet, in this room right now, is one of the very few people who can answer that question perfectly. Can you give the microphone to Vijay Prabhu? Come on. Very, very fortunate. If anyone can answer the question, it's you, Prabhu.
Sometimes people, they challenge, but they challenge, and you could tell that they're kind of innocently challenging. And then others people, they're challenging, and there's false ego behind, and you could sense it. After a while, you could sense it, and just it's been really nice talking to you. You're a very thoughtful person, but I got more people to try to reach. And then practically without accepting it, just like, oh, okay. Sometimes you get a little upset, but sometimes you can tell pretty much, they're just wasting your time. Yeah, experience you get, you can catch it, see it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was at a ceremony the other day, a pre-wedding ceremony, and this elderly Indian man comes up to me after the ceremony. He tries to tell me it's not Kali Yuga. And he said, and I said, no, it is Kali Yuga. He said, no, that idea that it's Kali Yuga was defeated long, long ago. He said, this whole thing about ascending and descending Kali Yuga and Satya Yuga, and actually we're not in Kali Yuga. And I said, that's not what the scripture says. The Bhagavatam doesn't say that. The Puranas doesn't say that. I said, I'm playing it safe. I'm just going to go with what the Bhagavatam says. And he said, no. I said, that's speculation, what you're talking. I said, it's not safe. You should just stick with the Bhagavatam. And he wanted to keep talking, but I just excused myself. Because what's the point? What's the point? This is Satya Yuga? So I don't know, and I just didn't want to get into it, and why, so I just excused myself. It's like, that's a dead end. It's a dead end. Other questions or comments? Yeah.
Thank you for a wonderful class. A while ago, I heard from some spiritual leader, and I think it was on a podcast or something. He said, I can tell someone's spiritual advancement by whether or not they're still counting. And I think when you're talking about calculating, I kind of get what he was saying. Is if someone's in the material world still counting this and that and calculating, he could tell they weren't that spiritually advanced. But if they had given up that instinct to count everything in this world, that he could tell they had some level of spiritual advancement. And on that same note, a quote, you were talking about the Ford descendant. I been reading this book, Srila Prabhupada, Messenger of the Supreme Lord, and it was talking about him building the Detroit temple and how he bought a property, a mansion, for $300,000 without any money, and it introduced that individual during that process because I think he was living in that Detroit area. I heard a quote from Cassius Clay, who, when he became a devotee of his Islam path, he became Muhammad Ali. His famous quote is, "Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee." But his least famous quote, one that I'll have to paraphrase because I didn't commit it to memory, he said something like, I wish I could go to a small town in the middle of America and walk down the street where nobody knew me and I could meet real people who like me for me. So I get what you're saying with that. On the same note where you were talking about varying degrees of spiritual advancement in birds, I'm probably a turkey who can barely fly, and I'll probably be sacrificed for...
You can gobble your way back to God.
So my question is very basic, but I have some familiarity with some of the words of the text today, the jnana, knowledge, vishuddha, pure, and sattva, goodness. But what I've noticed today is that there's dashes or hyphen marks connecting these 4 words together. And I'm assuming, does that mean that tapa, jnana, vishuddha, sattva is one concept that the Sanskrit is introducing? Or what's the function of the hyphens that are connecting those 4 words as opposed to...
Are you going to be here tomorrow when Dravid's here?
Funny.
Ask him.
This morning he told me, I'm a Sanskrit scholar. If you have any questions, we'll sit down and work.
There you go.
Okay.
So I don't want to speculate.
Okay. Well, thank you.
I love speculating, but I don't want to speculate.
Yeah, and I actually have some familiarity with those words, so I thought it might be a good question, but I'm a turkey, so thank you.
You're not a turkey. You're a Krishna conscious turkey. Any other questions or comments, or should we end here? Yes, Prabhu. Microphone. Yeah. It just means it's a continuation. Like that. That's a Roman transliteration. That's how they've made it, so you can, in your mind, understand it's a continuation. Like you said, commas, but Dravida could confirm that for you. So we can end here, right? All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the Prachetas.